You want my
Like,
name and who I am or whatever that is?
I just like who you are, what you do, how we met. We can talk about all that stuff later,
Well,
but
my
just
name is Charles Thornton, and I've been around a while, and so um, I don't know. It's very difficult to talk about myself. I can tell you stories about Charles Thornton, but yeah,
what I really want to know is how you got into horses.
I can tell you that exactly how I got into horses. I saw my father come down the road one day on a horse with his friend Wallace. Now, why I remember that man's name being Wallace, I don't know. But I thought it was the most amazing thing I had ever seen in my life.
How
And
old?
it was just, well, and he had on a riding habit, which was surprising to me. I didn't know anything about horses or riding clothes or anything like that, but my father had on a pair of wonderful riding boots. So did Wallace. And I'm thinking, and I didn't think to myself at this point in history and time, where did two black men find boots like that? I didn't think any of that. I just thought, my God, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I fell in love with my father then the first time. We've been in and out. But that, I remember that and thinking to myself that I wanted to look like that. Now, that thought didn't come back to me until my father was about to die. And I said to him, I said, all I ever wanted was to look like you on a horse. This whole time, all this stuff has been to look like you on a horse. If someone had seen me the next day on a horse and said, "Oh, you look just like Ernest, you look just like your daddy," I would have gotten off that horse and that would have been the last time I was ever dealt with a horse, period. Now, what happened was, in dealing with horses, my father was a very fine horseman. My father's journey in life is quite interesting. He ended up, well, part of his journey was living as a fugitive as a 12-year-old in this country. And, so anyway, I started goofing with the horses, right? And the thing that's interesting is that my father never, ever, ever, ever told me anything about what to do with a horse. And he could have. So, same story. Before he passed, I said to him, why didn't you ever tell me? You could have saved me a lot of headaches. He said, yeah, I probably could have. He said, I did save you once. I took care of a colicking horse for you. I said, yeah, you did. And I said, but what about the others? We go riding and and he looked at me and he said, passion in a human being is an interesting thing. He said, you could touch a person's passion and they would take whatever you had to offer and go straight to the moon. He said, but on the other hand, you might touch their passion and destroy it. And he said, in your case, I didn't know which way you would go, so I just left you alone. Now you have to understand that my father and I rode horses together. We went down the road. We People that had horses that I was working with, he would go riding. And one day we were riding. I had a very troubled horse, difficult, that kind of thing. And he's riding along with me, and we stopped, had a little bite of lunch. I mean, we'd go on these little 10-mile rides, stuff like that. And he said to me, let me try that one. I laughed. I said, this horse is goofy. You see the way he is. You don't want to ride this horse. He said, no, let me give him a try. No, if he gives me any trouble, I'll give him back to you. Okay. So we trade and we're going down the road. My father may have gone the length of a football field. And that horse just, everything about that horse changed. And the horse came together very nicely. And I saw my father take the reins and he just dropped them down over the horn. And we continued riding and talking. Now, here's what's interesting. I never asked him whatever happened. I was just amazed that this horse was behaving. And all I could think was, well, maybe he'll do that for me. I thought the horse did something, and I didn't bother to ask him anything, and he didn't bother to volunteer anything. So there've been lots of incidences like that with my father, where he could have stepped in and said, "Oh, wait a minute, hold it, this or that." Now he did do one thing. He made sure that I knew an old man by the name of Mr. Gatewood. Mr. Gatewood was a military person. He wore an Aussie hat, big Coke bottle glasses, and he sat on a bench in our area, in our town, and that was his bench. Dove and 24th Street. And kids, we played around him and did all kinds of things. We'd go there. And my father made sure that I knew a little bit of his history, that he was a great horseman, that he had trained for people in the military, generals and things like that. And that he had horses that were just unbelievable. He made sure that I knew that. And more than once he would mention him. Now I don't know that he's telling me that I should pay attention to Mr. Gatewood. I just know he's telling me stories about him once in a while. Well, I had a horse that I was working with, and the horse belonged to the Leonard family. The Leonard family was a black family of it. They were both educated. They had 3 daughters. They didn't have a son, but they also had horses. So I got myself adopted. I started, doing things with their horses. And one of those horses was really and truly squirrely, ridiculously squirrely. And I got desperate. Now, I didn't go and ask my father for any help, which was stupid. And I didn't ask him. So I go, one day, it crossed my mind that this man that my father talked about was the guy that I should go talk to. So I go up to the bench and I said, "Mr. Gatewood, I understand you know a lot about horses." My father said, "You really know a lot about horses." And he sat and he didn't say anything. He just looked straight ahead. And he finally said, "A might." He, he didn't say, "I might." He said, "A might." A might. And I took that to mean, okay, you have another question. And I said, "Well, Mr. Leonard's horses, and you could see the barn where he was sitting, the top of it from where we were sitting." I said, "Mr. Leonard's barn." And Mr. Leonard's another story in itself. And he said, he just nodded. I said, "Well, I have a horse there, and horses this and that." I told him all these things about the horse. And I said, "I was hoping maybe you could help me, you know, get the horse to behave better." And he turned, he looked at me, and he said, "Can you drive?" I said, "Can I drive?" He said, "Yeah, can you drive?" I said, "Well, I know how to drive, but I don't have a car." He said, "Well, can you get your daddy's car sometime?" I said, "I don't think so. I didn't have a driver's license. I wasn't old enough to drive." I said, "No, I don't think so." He said, "Well, you got to get the car to carry me on up there." Well, we couldn't walk there. And I looked at him. I said, "Well, I'll see if I can get my brother to do that." And I finally pestered my brother, pestered him, and pestered him. Finally, he agreed to go pick up Mr. Gatewood, drive him a couple of 3 blocks, whatever it was, to this barn. So we go to the barn, and I'll never be, he said something to me. I turned, I looked at him and said, "You want what?" He said, "You got a broom? A stable broom?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, give me the broom." So I go in the barn, I get the broom, I hand it to him. He spins the head off the broom. Haven't I told you this story?
No, you haven't told me this story.
Anyway, he spins the head off the broom, hands it back to me, and he walks over to a fence post and he breaks the broom handle in half. Now you have to understand, I am now terrified because I think this man has Mr. Gate was a little off. I also know now that I'm in debt. I don't have any money. I don't have a job, and I have to replace a broomstick. And my father's going to be bothered that I brought this man up here and got him into a mess because he's not, you know what I mean? So now he says to me, carry him out here, meaning to bring him the horse. Now, I don't know what these terms mean. He's asking me he wants to see how the horse leads. He's not asking me, he could go in there himself and done that if he, wanted to. They would carry him out here. I said, well, Mr. Gabriel, this horse, it's got a lot of problems. Maybe we shouldn't do this. He said, but carry him on out here. And I said, okay. I bring the horse out of the barn. It was a little Quonset type barn that Mr. Leonard had built. Mr. Leonard is a story worth telling you one day. And he says to me, well, turn him loose. Now, you know damn well I'm not going to turn this horse loose because I know what he's going to do. He'll run over you, knock you down. He doesn't care about anything, really. They're really difficult. And I said, I can't do that. He said, why can't you do that? I said, because the horse is terrible. I was trying to find a way to get out of this pickle I'm in. He said, well, if you can't turn him loose, then carry me all back to my bench. And finally, I said, well, but he said, well, then turn him loose. So I finally, turned the horse loose. And of course, the horse is all over the place. And he said, well, you get on out the way. So I went back, got in the doorway of the barn, just got out of the way. This pen is 20 by 20, by the way. And this man took these two sticks and he began to hit these sticks. And of course, it startled the horse, startled me. Why are they beating on two sticks? This horse is going crazy, running around here. And pretty soon that horse stopped. Now, he gained control over this horse with two sticks. He had this horse moving left, moving right. Now, what also surprised me is that the horse never got stuck in a corner. Now, at that time, the horse had gotten stuck in lots of corners for me when I would try to catch him. I tried to corner him up or do something. And I thought this was going to happen to him. And then he would get hurt if he tried to, and he didn't. And he worked this horse to the point where the horse was lathered. And the horse, the horse would start and maybe go 3 or 4 feet, and then he would stop him, get the horse and then turn him. And Mr. Gatewood didn't go more than 5 feet, a circumference, a circle of 5 feet. He did all of it. And so finally, the horse stops and he takes the two sticks and he just puts his hands down right beside him. He doesn't say anything and he just waits. And the horse walked over to him. What I know now, all that made sense. But at that time, you can imagine that was a little bit terrifying in a way. So horse walked over to him, pet the horse a little bit. He said, I believe you can do a little something with it now. Go get your gear. Put your saddle on it. So I go in the barn, get my stuff, and I put all my stuff on it. I'm standing there. I don't get on the horse. He finally tells me, well, you going to get on him or not? I said, well, you think I should? He said, I believe you are. So I get on the horse. Horse was fine. Horse went around the ring, just stop and turn a little bit, quiet, stop. All right, he said, I believe you can get along with him now. Carry me back up to my bench. So I unsaddled the horse, put the horse away, got my brother, came, picked him up, took him to the bench. Now, here's where a young fool is involved in this story. The young fool in this story was me. I never went to the bench and asked him another damn thing. Can you imagine what I would know now if I'd gone back to the bench?
Why didn't you ask him?
I don't know. All I wanted was what everybody else wants that you and I deal with, is to get on the horse and go down the road. They don't want to learn all this shit. they don't know that they don't know. They don't know that they need this stuff. I didn't know. I knew I wanted to be ready to call up a couple of people I knew, Jim Marinos, and get on a horse and we could meet somewhere. I rode 9 and 10 mile rides by myself. I mean, I'd go. We had a place out in the country and where Leonard's had another farm. I'd ride back and forth. You know, I mean, I just wanted to be on a horse. I didn't necessarily want to be seen on a horse. I wasn't interested in, but I did want to be on the horse. Now, all along, all I'm trying to do is look like my father, but I don't know that. It's been an interesting journey tied to all this stuff I'm telling you.
But you obviously took it somewhere because you started a writing school.
I started writing school much later in my life because I got pissed off, and I'm going to say symbolically at white people because I had worked around and I learned how to get in my brother's car and go places, watch shows, and I was doing all kinds of things. Rodeo, tried to do a little rodeoing, hung out with the Genos family there at home, had horses, and I was always trying to, but nobody would let me. I wanted to learn, and one of the stables I worked in was pretty fancy stable, and they wouldn't let blacks ride in the grooms classes and stuff. I didn't understand any of that stuff because I've been doing what I wanted to do with my life, and I was gonna let anybody tell me I could go home and ride a horse, because we had horses there. I didn't have any problem getting on a horse, but I wanted to know some of the finer points. I wanted to know something a little bit about jumping, watching the stable. I mean, I'm cleaning the stalls and preparing the horses. So what the hell? So I quit. I'm not doing this. I want to learn how to ride. I know how to muck a stall. I've been cleaning stalls a long time. And so after that, other things happened in my life, and just went along to and ended up at Michigan State University. And that's another story in itself. I didn't make plans to go to college, but you know, it happened. And I went to a horse show. The other thing you should know is that when I became a storyteller, started doing stories, and I wrote a story called "My First Round Pen Was a Square Pen," and I dedicated it to John Lyons because John Lyons' philosophy about this horsemanship stuff was the first person that I came across in the formal way of looking at this horsemanship. And it was in Bellingham, Washington, where I saw my first demonstration. And of course, when I saw the guy chasing the damn horse around a round pit, I just looked at that and said, "Well, Mr. Gatewood did it in a little box. So it's no big deal. What is this?" It's funny. But anyway, I ended up at MSU, at Michigan State University, and a guy by the name of Chuck Grant gave a dressage demonstration, and it was at the local pavilion, the school pavilion, and they had a show every spring called the Block and Bridle Horse Show. And I'm a new guy. I heard about the show, so I go there. And I watched this, and I go, "That's it. That's the shit I've been looking for. That's what I want." And I thought, "That's it." And now I'm on my way. Afterwards I went, down in the stable area. And of course, people are surrounding him and asking him all kinds of questions and everything. And I'm waiting my turn. And finally he looks at me and he says, "Well, what can I do for you?" I said, "First of all, if you don't want to talk to a black person about these horses, then tell me now so we don't waste each other's time." And he looked at me and he looked at me and he said, "What in the hell are you talking about?" He says, "This came from black people. Do you know who the Moors are? Do you know anything about the Iberian Peninsula? Do you know?" And he went into a whole historical thing about the development of the Arab and the breed, the whole thing, right? And he said, "I was in the military." He said, "Who the hell you think taught me all this?" He said, "Black men taught me all this." And he started naming Patton and naming all these generals. He said, "You know who trained Patton's horses?" He named the black men who were the trainers and all that. The guy was, and I'm standing there, and of course, and I'm sure the white people standing around listening to this conversation didn't know what to make of it. I could see their faces. I'm thinking, this shit is kind of interesting. This guy, but I felt bad too because I felt like I embarrassed myself. And that wasn't my intent. I just wanted to I didn't want to waste my time or his time, really. And he said to me, now you can come to my place anytime you want, and you can work with me anytime you like. And he said, and if you get any shit from anybody on my place, you just find me and I'll take care of it. He said, in the meantime, and then I got mad with what he said. He said, get this book. And that's what made me mad because I had always gone to the library. I was reading, you know, Russian literature, Sholokov and Dostoevsky and all that. I mean, why? I don't know. But my partner and I would go to the library on Friday nights and stuff. So I always went to the library to get anything I wanted to know. Why the hell didn't I go to the card catalog and look up horse? Now, what the hell was wrong with me? I didn't ask my father any questions, and I didn't go to the card catalog. I'm fussing with these horses, getting booked off and all kinds of. Can you imagine? And this guy tells me, so here I am at a university. I mean, I'm at a university where a learned person shouldn't be asking questions. They ought to be at the damn card. I went there for all kinds of things. And it really bothered me that I didn't do that. So the next morning, I didn't go to class. I went to the state library and I looked up that book. It was a book called Writing Logic by Musla.
I have that book.
Yeah, everybody ought to have that book. I have
Yeah.
given more copies of that book to people than you can imagine. I spent a fortune on that damn book. Yeah. And I got the book, and when I opened the book and started reading the book, I was like, oh, God, this is the real deal here. I can do this. I don't need anybody. Yeah. So, anyway, that's kind of how it got started. Yeah. And then, of
So
course, go
tell
ahead.
me about how you opened the school. What
I
happened?
opened the school because eventually, when I was working for these stables, I just didn't like the attitude, and I had it in my mind that this was ridiculous. As I began to learn, I got connected. I met people who I got my first lunge lesson from a guy named Harley Waxer, who was a Canadian who was down a student here from Canada who was going to veterinary school here. And at that time, I'd gotten myself involved with the stallion and some other horses, wonderful kind of horses. And he came out and started me and gave me my first uh, workable bit, an egg butt snaffle bit, hollow mouth. And I ended up giving it to Richard Davis, who was a great bass player in this country. But he also was a formidable horseman. Yeah, Richard Davis. There's a whole another story. But anyway, that's what happened. I just decided that I didn't need to kiss anybody's ass to be able to get on a horse. And I was going to open a riding school and demystify who could ride a horse. Now, I had another motive, of course, because that was in the 60s and we had a lot of activities going on with Black people trying to get themselves on, some dignity in this country. And I had gotten myself involved with connected with folks from South Africa who were doing things to try to resolve issues in South Africa. And so I wanted to find a way to process monies of some of these movements. And it became apparent to me there are two things that the IRS, because I read a lot, IRS didn't bother people with dogs or horses. And if I could figure out a way to do what I wanted to do with these horses, which I liked doing and wanted to do, then I could figure out a way that we could funnel money through some kind of structure and take care of some of the problems that we were trying to wrestling with. And they were on an international scale. And so that's what I did. I started school. And, I got lucky there, met some young student here who had the kind of background that we're talking about. They'd been through Pony Club and all that other stuff. And they knew the methodology. They knew how to structure the lesson for a student. And so, yeah, and Harley was there coaching me. That's kind of how it started. And it became an excellent school. I didn't know that till I went away for 10 years. I didn't know. I knew what I was doing. I knew what I wanted to do. I just had this in my mind that nobody should go around here believing they had to belong to some social class in order to have a horse. I've been to, all the classy places around Detroit where people had horses. I've been to a lot of different things. And all I was looking at is, it seemed to me that the average person, when the quarter horse thing came on the scene, there's some ugly ass horses. Headed horses. And most of the people that I knew who were into the quarter horse thing, they didn't have the kind of aesthetic that I was looking for. I wanted the finesse. Well, I did see that one time at a rodeo. I don't know where this guy was from, but he was sitting on a horse and he did a couple of turnarounds on this horse. And it was so pretty and so smooth and so quiet. And he didn't seem to be doing anything. But in my mind, later on, I made the connection between this and those 6 steps in the dressage movement, you see. So, and I thought, oh, that level is what I want in this Western world. I don't want this jerking around. I'm tired of, I don't get anywhere with that. So yeah, all these pieces start to fall together. And then I keep meeting people who've been helpful, and just said, yeah, sure, I'll show you what that is. And I did it to the school. And it was a really good school too. I didn't realize how great it was for years.
What kind of horses did you have in your school, and what kind of
We,
people teach?
we had mixed horses and all kinds of horses, but what we did have was people who knew how to train a horse to teach people how to ride. These horses were all schooled in terms of their manners, their behavior, everything. All things you need to have an excellent school horse. And all of them, we had maybe, I would say, 2 or 3 schoolmasters, and the others had different things that were available as the students advanced. And I didn't, this is all just made sense to me. You know, I didn't think anybody should ever get bucked off a horse. That was one of the rules I had in my school. No one gets bucked off a horse. The other thing I had is everybody has to learn how to mount a horse. There were no mounting blocks or anything. We knew how to do that, but I didn't want that. You could get a leg up if you're having difficulty, but you had to get yourself physically fit to be on the horse. And I also knew that I didn't understand this fully until maybe, I don't know, the last 10 or 12 years, that people like you who ride a lot of horses, I have it in my mind that if I could get a person to ride for in a straight line for 100 miles and come back, they wouldn't need anybody telling them anything about a horse. They would find all those things on the horse. People like you who ride a lot of horses, there's no way in hell someone like Brent Graff, who's been on how many tens of thousands, or anybody else you can think of, I mean, you can't get that going around in a circle twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get it? You get it by being on a school master.
Mm-hmm.
So each one of these phases that you're trying to understand on the horse, you can learn it and you can get the body to identify and feel of what it is that you're expecting you and the horse to do together. But you need well-trained horses, not just some quiet horse that goes around a ring. It must be a horse that can respond to a request within reason so the person riding it can identify and practice the request. And so that's what I was trying to do with my riding school. And it seems to me that it did a pretty good job.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
That I know you and I have talked about this a lot about the industry and the interest that there is or lack of interest that there is in learning these skills. Because a good riding school anymore is hard to come by. Horses that are well schooled and not just, like you said, quiet, that'll kind of dunk around the arena and cart you around safely. But to actually learn that feel is really rare now.
Well, Wendy Murdoch told me there were no schools left in the country. I asked her one time. I was at one of her clinics, and who she is, by the way. one of the hardest working human beings I've ever seen at a clinic. She,
Yeah.
physically, right? Yeah. But anyways, that's what she told me. I said, you gotta be kidding. She goes, no. She said, this place you can go take a riding lesson, but not an academy that's there for the sole purpose of teaching people to ride.
Yeah.
We don't have any. And you're saying the same thing. I didn't
I've
know.
I've been looking for 'em my whole life. I've never come across one. It's always been my dream to start one. So when you told me that you started one, that's when I knew I had to get to know you because I had to figure out how you did it and what it needed to be like. But how do we get a writing school back in this country? You already
Oh,
did it, so you got to help me.
somebody, a philanthropist has to do it because it's costly. You see, well, people are looking for something. When you start talking about an aesthetic, it's very difficult to get somebody to understand when they see you or anybody else doing something that's finesseful on a horse
Mm.
to think that it's something either that's too difficult for them to do, or number two, it must be easy.
Yeah.
There's no in between where they say there must have been a progression. Where do I start to get that? They don't ask that question. Now, a little kid who wants to play football doesn't get to vote. He has to go through because you got all these steps that he has to go through. He can imagine himself being whoever he wants to imagine himself as, but he has to get knocked down and play and do all the things in between to get there. But
Yep.
that's not true for a horse. You can put anybody up on a horse. I see kids on a horse, 4 year olds, 5 year olds at these rodeos, raining horse, roping horse comes along. Dad takes the kid and puts him up on the horse. I don't know if he's showing off or what. And the little kid does all right flopping around there on a
Hmm.
horse. And he seems, he's comfortable. I wouldn't do it with my kid. But these kids are around horses. They grow up with horses. And obviously the parent thinks they're safer. They wouldn't put them up there.
Yeah.
But the idea of being able to get that time on the horse, that is the thing. How do you get those hours compacted in the model that we have for people to learn to ride? And the only one is the lunch line. There's no other way.
That's something that I feel really sad about because teaching people a feel that they've never felt before and trying to convince them that they should care about it. If you're learning to ride on horses that are half lame and just safe enough to carry you around, then that's the feeling you get in your body. And so when you're trying to teach people finesse later on, it's like trying to teach people about love when they've never felt it. You have to live it. You have to feel it over and over and over again. And that's
Yeah.
where the horses like you've made that we don't have in this country anymore, people have to grow up on that to get that feeling and to seek more of it. And that's something that I am often frustrated about as a teacher. And part of the reason why I pick your brain all the time is how do we get people to look for a feeling they've never felt before?
Well, I think one of the problems is we start at the wrong place with them. People talk to me about loving horses, and I probably told you this more than once. I don't love horses. I like horses. I care
Yeah.
about horses, but I make sure they know that the horse is not going to bring you chicken soup.
Yeah.
So if you want to know about love, then you better, some stuff here. Maybe people love their cat, their dog. They tell me about all these kind of loves. I don't buy into that. I think that's a nice thing, and I think it's a wonderful thing, and I don't think there's any problem having a deep-seated emotion for any kind of animal, if that's your thing. But when I see people go through what they go through and turn right around and not be able to hand that compassion to a human being,
Mm,
I'm like, what happened here?
yeah.
There's something wrong here.
I don't
And
think that's love. I think that's filling a void with an animal.
well, it could be, but we allow the option. Nobody puts them in check and says that's not love. By the way, nobody says that to anybody.
Yeah.
you know, you get your they look at you like, what are you talking about? They don't want to hear that. I see kids all the time who are romping around with their spurs on. I mean, I'm looking to hear that clunk, clunk, clunk. And I'm looking at them saying, well, you're going to endanger the horse. And I see the little white spots on their
Mm.
horses, and you can't, who am I to tell them anything? I did see one parent one time do something which was surprising to me. And this woman was wearing what the reason I noticed her is because she had a magnificent doe skin coat she was wearing. I noticed the coat quality. It looked like something that maybe was made by, I don't know, some really who knew how to tailor. Because the lapels were rounded, they weren't all square and flat, like, I don't know. Ooh. Well, later on, I saw a little kid with the chaps all rolled up, and then somebody picked her up and plopped her down on this wonderful looking horse, all pointed leather, this and that. And she goes in the ring. Of course, she goes around there her little 50 seconds or whatever it was, and she comes out with the big trophy. And I'm watching this, and this woman walks up to her and says, "Okay, that's it. You've got it." She says, "And I don't want to hear another word from you about these horses. From here on out, it's on you." Like, what is this? Well, it turns out kid had been a pest. Wanted this and wanted it. He's spoiled. Obviously, it wasn't that the family couldn't afford it. But she went ahead and did everything she had to do to get this kid this championship she thought was the end of the world. And at that point, she said, "No, I'm done. Anything else you get with these horses is on you. Find the job, find the money." And hugged her little girl. Okay. And the mother left. I was like, I don't know what happened to the people tending the kid took care of the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, I hope a lot of other people got this lesson because I did. But I don't know what it is. And I look at these saddles that people buy. I have a friend, I don't understand that either. They don't know anything about these saddles. I made my first saddle, but not, I've ridden in other saddles. I'm still convinced that the McClellan saddle is the best saddle to try to learn how to ride a horse in.
Why is
I,
that?
because of the way it sits on a horse. If you can find one that fits your horse and puts you forward on the horse, there isn't any place for you to go lollygagging on the back of your butt because there's that little slit in the middle, and you better figure out how to get those seat bones on the right place, or you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's the kind of saddle I learned to ride in. Now all these saddles knock everybody backward behind the center of
That's right.
gravity. Dig it, they have to like kind of brace on their knees. It's really hard to teach people to ride in those because there's nowhere to sit in the center.
Well, there's another thing. See, I got lucky there. I met an old guy in Chicago who spent a lot of time teaching me about the saddle seat. He was a saddle maker. But he said, "You can't make any money here making saddles." So I sell saddles. And he sold me two saddles. He sold me a Simcoe, which was a wonderful saddle, and he sold me a Kiefer saddle. And the Kiefer was a dressage saddle. And he took a lot of time to show me exactly what this saddle should do and how it should fit on horse. I don't know what I don't know that I can tell anybody else about that, but that's what happened. Just these things just kind of happened. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I didn't plan it. You know, it just came along. I was curious. I asked a lot of questions, and I made my first saddle. I I wanted a saddle that I liked. And ridden in these saddles, but they make you hurt and sore and all that. And I found a tree, a full saddle, and I just stripped it. And I went to my teacher in my high school. She was a crafts teacher. And I said to her, "I want to make a saddle." She said, "I don't know anything about that." She says, "And besides, you don't want to be in this class with these dummies." She said, "They send me all the dummies. They send me all the bad kids. You don't want this cooling camp was her name. She was so talented." And I said, "No, no, it's okay. Well, you have to do all the projects too." I said, "Yeah, that's okay. I'll do the project, but would you help me? You know, where I get leather?" And she finally relented. "Okay, I'll help you. What do you want to do?" So I brought this tree in. She looked at it, "And you want to make saddle out of it?" I said, "Yeah." So she helped me buy the leather, find Tandy Leather Company, get the leather. And my mother tolerated me tooling this thing. I don't know how she put up with that in our little whole house, but she did. And yeah, so that's what I did. And I made my first bridles out of raffia. I got Doris Lindsay to help me braid. I used to know how to really
You
braid.
braided it out of raffia?
Yeah, made all the everything.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm just screwing around with raffia that's so fragile. How many strands did
it's
you have?
not fragile. It's plastic.
Oh,
It was pretty nice stuff. Well, back then they had summer camps, right?
yep,
Summer stuff like on the playground, and they
yep.
had they had crafts, and there you could learn to do a lot of different things. So since I knew how to do the braiding, it took me a while to figure out how to get brow band and all that stuff together. But Doris Lindsay, a little kid next door, would help me because the strands were long. Somebody had to be at the other end to keep them from getting tangled up. And so that's what I did. And I use snaps to hook up for the reins. I mean, snaps to hook up the bit and all that.
You still have it?
No, I don't have any of that. A guy named Andy Yike, who's another story in my life, he had me give the saddle to a kid who was really poor. After I got to the point where I could afford to buy and have a nice saddle, and Andy had nice saddles, and he said, "You don't need, you should, let's see if this kid really needs a saddle. So what do you think we let him have that saddle?" And I said, "Well, if you think so." He says, "Yeah, I think so." So that's what happened. Went to somebody. Yeah.
I'm gonna change directions just a little bit because I know you go to a lot of clinics. You watch a ton of clinics. Just for the record, that's how I met you, right?
Yeah.
What do you see that people need the most? What do you think they should be doing before they come to these clinics based on what
Learn to ride.
I knew?
That's it's just that simple.
Yeah.
Learn to ride. Because if you can ride, if you have the understanding what we're then you can get a hell of a lot from somebody in a clinic that you get. I watched you with a couple of people there, and I knew perfectly well that you were on the right track, and they could not deliver. Their bodies could not deliver. They didn't know the language.
Mm.
They had no idea, and you were trying your ass off. You brought good energy to it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah. And I thought, man, oh man, how do you transfer that? How do you get somebody to just break down and say, "Oh my God, help me"? How do you do that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of tough because, like you said, people come there for what they want, and a clinic is kind of turned into it's like a show. It's like it's a fun event. It's not an educational event for some people. They're there to be seen and see others and get to know the clinician, but the person who's there to truly learn to ride, that one's pretty rare.
Well,
People are,
they're looking at. I think people are they think I have someone I was working with who thinks she has a relationship with horses. She loves horses, and I told her one day. I said, I'm trying to get through to a brain that has taken horses to people and had them get them ready for her to sit on.
mm,
And so you have this whole idea of you and this horse. You get on it and you claim to love it, and it relates to you, and you have all this stuff in your head, and none of it is true. I said, just looking at you pick up a lead rope. I said, she had two horses. She walked in the stall, and of course, the lead rope is there on the floor. She takes a halter. She goes over to the horse. The rope's there. Part of it's between her legs. The rope is.
mm,
And I stopped her. I asked her, I said, now, what is it you want? What are you trying to accomplish here? She says, well, I'm just going to put a halter on and bring the horse out. I said, if that horse made the wrong move, he might bring you out by your heels.
mm-hmm.
We're, now, how do I tell her about the number of times I screwed up to learn this piece of information is going to save her ass? You know what I mean?
I sure do. That's so funny you say that because I've taught all over I've done a bajillion clinics for a short period of time. I've done quite a bit of them. And that is the number one thing that is frustrating to me is trying to convey basic safety information to people who are experienced and they not only don't believe you, they're mad at you for saying it.
That's
Like
right.
lead rope over the shoulder or wrapped around the arm or dragging between the legs and
Exactly.
people putting their head under the horse's head. And you come here to teach a clinic on riding, but I'm like, but I don't want you to get killed in front of me. And it's
Right.
so important to me that I have to stop you because I can't watch you get hurt in front of me today. And
Well,
that
see, I think I don't do, I haven't done any clinics. I mean, I've done some, minor stuff. And I don't know if I gave you a copy of a clinic I tried to present.
no, but you need to.
It's about a language thing. It's
Now,
about, yeah, the nomenclature, the language of this process. And, and I just wanted to sit and have a dialogue about that,
mhm,
asking people about what their hands mean when they do. Watching Kurt Pate touch a horse was pure magic. And you know what Brent does with his hands. So, right. But that's it.
yeah.
You have to start. Now, would you be able to have a clinic? I think Tara probably is the only person I know who could round up enough people who would be interested enough to come and put in time practicing just at those basic levels.
Hmm.
Yeah. How to, it's hard. It's
Hmm.
hard to get rid of these bad habits, which
It is
I
hard.
think, yeah, and that's where I came from.
Yep. You got to get some backbone because you're going to get corrected a lot for a long time. And if you don't have some patience and if you don't have the stomach for it, if your feelings get hurt too quickly, you're not going to you're not going to get far. And that's what I try to tell my students when they're getting upset over getting corrected is I've been getting corrected a lot longer than you. And you just got to get
That's right.
used to it.
Yeah, there you
It's not
go.
the end of the world. Like I didn't end up the way that I am magically. I got corrected a lot because I had a lot of bad habits because I've been training by myself in the backyard in an arena trying to not get killed. So I grabbed and jerked and I did all kinds of stuff I didn't know I was doing. And Brent's been correcting me. My students watch me with Brent and they think I'm going to do some magical thing and he's telling me to pick up the lead rope better. You know,
Yeah,
Slide it out of your hand better. Don't be so quick. Slow down. Pay attention. Every year, 10 years, every single year. Pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. I
right,
get corrected constantly because that's what it takes if you want to be that refined.
right.
So you got to have some stomach for that. You got to not take it to heart that it,
Well, I think pedagogically, I don't know if I told you this or not, but I had a little encounter with Joe Walters over the issue of the pedagogy,
yeah.
and it was really wonderful. But I think what I've done personally, I have relinquished the possessive in my relationship with people that I'm instructing.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is I no longer think of them as mine.
Mm.
So in a classroom, I've done a lot. I've been on, probably told you this, I've been on 3 university faculties, and I finally gave up the idea that they were my students. I still use that term once in a while, but it's not what I mean. What I'm talking about is basically what I call unlearning, unteaching.
Mm.
I'm not there to be, I don't want that person in that way. So when you say, this is just my starting point, my starting point is to try to get that air right between us. So you're standing there and I'm standing here and I'm trying to tell you, asking you what it is you need to be better at what it is you say you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you tell me what that is, and then I provide you with a way to get to that, it's up to you to decide how hard you want to work to use what it is that I'm saying. And keep in mind that I might be wrong. But in the meantime, this is the best that you have at hand. So make the best of it.
Mm-hmm.
Give it 100%. And at the point where you see it's not taking you where you want to go, just stop doing it and find somebody else. But you see, a lot of times they think they got to hang on to you and just, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it. You don't need to mimic. You don't need to be me because tomorrow I may find a better way. And when I would close my classes at the university level, I would always tell students, remember not to repeat or quote me at all for any reason whatever. If you think I presented something or I have something here you can use, then go verify it. And that's the same thing with the horse. If I tell you there's a way to use this lead rope, tie it to something and practice. See what you get. And if it gives you no returns, then don't do it. It's going to tomorrow when I show up here to protect the black taxpayer's dollar, I want the right to have been wrong.
I love that.
That's it. Try, and I try to do that. That's what I try to do. It's not always easy because sometimes they want you to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want you to search. I want you to just get that aha thing for yourself. And
Because
once
then
you
it's
have
really
it,
yours.
uh,
Because then it's yours, you know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's you know. Now I've seen some people be awful mean to people sometimes around horses. That doesn't make any sense because nobody needs a horse. We're not desperate. We drive Teslas. I mean, come on. We want to go someplace. Nobody mounts up on Dolly. I mean, they might somewhere in this country they might, but that's not essential around here. It's pure pleasure.
Should
Yeah,
be.
it
Should
should
be.
be.
It
Yeah.
seems like for a lot of people, the pleasure's going out, which is sad.
Well, but I don't know where all these horses come from. But man, there's a lot of horses around. Holy smokes! I heard there's more horses in Kent County around Chicago than there were when horses were the primary mode of transportation. Somebody told me that.
Really.
Yeah.
When I
Huh?
moved to North Carolina, the statistics were 3 horses per 1 person in the state.
Yeah.
That's why I moved down there because I wanted work. You know, I wanted plenty of work.
How did that work?
I
Did you
did,
get
I
that?
did, I did get plenty of work. Yeah. Everybody had a horse or 2.
Wow. I don't know. Someday we should talk about the financial aspects of the industry, which I don't understand at all.
Yeah, we could talk about that now because I haven't, talking about the school, the writing school. I've been thinking that about that for a while. Um, I couldn't make the finances work personally with horse training or even really teaching lessons. So I'm trying to pivot and do something, so I can pay for my kids to live and eat. But um, it seems like from what I see out there, if you're working on horse trainer money, you've got to have a second income from a physician husband.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
That's the only way that I know that it's gonna work. Or you gotta have at least have a second income. And yeah, I don't know where the industry is gonna go because it's pretty hard to carve out a living. Even doing I had a clinic every weekend for a while, and I couldn't eat. Plus, I would have 12 training horses plus a clinic every weekend, and it was still pretty hard to
Whoa.
make that work. And I'm sure that I could have been a better business person. It's not. I'm not some business. I'm very bad at business, so I take fault there. But everybody's got a horse. They can't afford it, but they take it to training. I can't afford to work. I don't really know what the answer is, but it is a messy subject and a lot of feelings come up for a lot of people because, like you said, horses are they're a hobby for us. They're for pleasure, right? So nobody has to get a horse. But we want to have horses, and then we feel like the vet should make it cheaper for us, and the farrier should make it cheaper for us, and the saddle fitter should make it cheaper for us. And so,
Yeah.
something's got to give there
Right.
because, now that I have kids, I'm a lot more firm with people than I was before because I'll starve my kids if I'm stupid. I gotta get paid because I gotta pay the nanny. I gotta get the groceries. I mean, it's it's a lot different now that it's not just me and I can't just, feel sorry for other people all the time and let them have a cheaper thing, but everybody's looking to cut costs in the horse world, which I get, but nobody's making us have horses, you know? So,
Well, that's the thing that's wrong with the horse world. People are in a business; they want to be in a horse thing and then talk about saving money.
yeah,
No, that's not it. You know,
yeah,
I wouldn't have a horse if I didn't make my own hay.
yeah,
Yeah, I couldn't afford a horse if I did not make my own hay. I lost my barn, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean, and I had the way I lived last year with those horses. It was just unthinkable, really, for me. I
yeah,
mean, worked hard, had a nice big barn, and, you know, so it was something I could manage. But it's crazy when you think about it. And the
yeah,
cost of getting it all back together again, I don't certainly don't want it at the level that I had it before because what's the point at this point in my life, you know? And when people talk to me about wanting to go into the horse business, I meet young people. They're going to I'm going to be a horse trainer and all that. I said, well, then you're in the wrong school. They said, what? I said, yeah, you go over to Eppley. That's the business school.
hmm,
I learned a lesson about a can of beans from a woman, old lady, Mrs. Ray's. I met this woman one morning. I used to get up in the spring and go check out the hay fields. I love making hay. I do. I get into it. Anyway, I saw an elevator sticking out of a barn and hey, I thought maybe that's for sale. I could really use that elevator. So I stopped, knock on the door. I go in, meet this woman, and she had half a face. And it really shook me up. And I said to her, well, ma'am, who I am, what I want. She goes, it belongs to him. And she points out the door over to the next quarter mile. And you can see the top of a house. She says, it belongs to him. I said, who? He lives over there, she said. If you want to know about that elevator. I said, yes, ma'am. And I was trying to find a way, to exit. And she says, you want to come in? And I said, well, yeah, I guess so. I went in, sat down. She got me some coffee or tea, had a long talk about all kinds of things. And I heard her story, why she was there, and the alcoholic husband, and the final divorce, and the cancer. I get the whole story. I ended up asking her about two things. One was why she had painted this wonderful oak trim in this farmhouse. Somebody painted it. I said, why would anybody paint this lovely, wonderful wood? And she said to me, I painted it. I said, yeah? She goes, yes. And I said, well, why would you do that? She said, well, back in the day, we had coal burning furnaces and we had varnishes and shellacks that softened in the heat and they absorbed the particles of soot and all that. And it was the housewife's job, the woman's job to clean that in the spring cleaning thing. She said, we have, and she named all these chemicals she had to use to get this wood cleaned up. And she said, now, when Mr. Kimtone came along, we only needed water and a brush. We didn't need a man or anybody else. I could get rid of all of that, any color I wanted. And that's why that kitchen trim and all that stuff in there have been painted, right? So the other thing I asked her was about canning and food. I noticed there were some canning jars there. There's nothing in it. I said, you still do that canning? She goes, goodness knows she got a can of beans. Put a can of beans on the counter. She goes, what is that? This is a can of beans. She goes, no, it isn't. I said, Mrs. Reeves, come on, what's the deal? What are you trying to tell me? She goes, that is time. That let me go and play canasta with my girlfriends. She said, do you know what it took to make that jar of beans if I put them in that jar? It was me, the planter, the harvester, the processor, the canner. Now, when could I go play canasta? I don't know what card game she was telling me about, but that's the way she was. So see, all these things you just get lucky. You don't plan your life. Like, I mean, yeah, it's like meeting you. I just thought your energy was on a level that made sense to me. More than your horse stuff it was your inner energy that I liked. Yeah.
I felt the same when I met you.
Well, I'm glad
But
that worked.
we have to talk more.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel that way every time we talk. If we have to talk more, I need hours more.
Well, at some point we'll be closer together, then it'll be easier. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to work, but now that you got a Miles in your life, yeah. That
Yeah,
was
I was gonna
Miles
get him
Davis
a
loved
poster.
horses too.
Did he really?
Yeah, his father had horses.
Miles Davis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He
Yeah,
doesn't
it's funny.
for it.
I, I always liked jazz, but I've never been, like I couldn't tell you what I was listening to if it came on sometimes, except for a few songs that I'm kind of addicted to. But um, I've always liked jazz and I didn't know why. And it's not like it's popular to hear out when you're out grocery shopping or whatever. And so when Miles was born, we were looking for a name. I don't know why. I knew I had to name him Miles after Miles Davis. And I always wanted to get him because I wanted him to have a strong name. I wanted him to have a name of somebody who was unique and carried their own
Mm-hmm.
way through the world. That was very important to me. And I always wanted to get him a poster and for his room of the Miles Davis album, Miles Smiles,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's the cutest little dimples. His little dimples are just amazing. So
Well, I'm still trying to find the painting. I don't know why I can't find a copy of it. When I get it, I'll send it to you. I know it's there in my stuff somewhere, but after the fire, and things
yeah.
they're just, I don't know where anything is. I had a poster. I gave Sean the T-shirts I had.
Oh yeah.
I had made up some Miles Davis T-shirts.
Did he love it?
I don't know whether he liked them or not.
Oh,
I just gave them to him. I didn't talk to him about it or anything.
I bet he loved it.
Oh, he might not. See, that's the thing. See, what you're talking about right there? I try not to have any judgments about or any expectations.
Yeah, you're a better person than me. I have a
I'm not,
hard time.
I'm not a better person than you. What I am is someone with a certain kind of experience and it's led me to this spot. That's all it is.
That's
And
true.
don't have any more value than anything else.
That's a better way of looking at it
Yeah, you know why?
because
Because
he's
that relinquished me. That takes me. I don't want. I don't want. I don't want to be responsible.
everyone with you.
You got your
I quote
no.
you on that.
Yeah, you got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I admire it. Yeah, I consider this an honor that you want me to do this. You know.
Oh, I'm gonna as many of your stories as I can get recorded. I'm gonna try because you know the I've had those experiences in my life too, where there's just certain people you meet, and it's just this little moment in your life that seems like it opens everything up, and you don't know why it happened or for what reason, but I remember when I was 18 years old. I grew up in South America because my dad was Air Force. And I wanted to get out so bad. I couldn't wait to get out on my own. And I bought a ticket, flew from Colombia to Las Vegas by myself. It's just out in the world. I didn't have a damn thing to my name, no money, no nothing, no plan. I didn't care. I was just excited to get out. And it didn't occur to me that I was a young woman alone in the world and that was dangerous. Not, it just
Well,
didn't even. And I sat down in LA and my connection. I sat down in LA and this older man came and sat down next to me. And he was talking to me and I was talking to him. And I started to realize that he was missing most of his teeth and he looked kind of like just like the kind of man that my mom would have said, get away from that man. Somebody an 18-year-old, but I was too dumb to think that like this is dangerous. So we were just chatting up, having a great time. He had a guitar and he started playing the blues. And I had maybe a 12-hour connection, but I spent the entire connection with this man, Melvin, and I still have a picture of his hands because he fell asleep. And I was into photography at the time. I had a black and white photography. I had the whole 9 yards, the developing stuff. But he fell asleep and he fell asleep with his hands on his lap like this. And he had the deepest creases in his hands and these big wide fingernails and just the most gorgeous hands that I'd ever seen. And so I snapped a photo of it and I still have that photo. And for the rest of my life, I'll never forget that interaction because it was like we truly were friends for a 12-hour connection, you know?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
but that was because I was so wide open that I didn't think like this man could be a creep, he could be dangerous to me. I don't talk to strangers. And when I was younger, that happened to me a lot more. And I had lots of interactions like that, people on buses, airplanes, um, people that are very special to me, and I don't know why. I don't know anything about Melvin where he went.
Well, see, I do this with children.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I tell parents, get them something. I don't know what it is. They want to go, oh, say hi and all that sort of stuff. I tell them, don't ever tell your child to say hi to anybody, ever. They look at me like, what? I said, no, let them practice their antenna. You're here to protect the child. The child is practicing. They're reading. They're learning how to know good, bad, safe, all stuff. But if you don't let them practice, they're going to become dependent. And when the resentment comes, you're not going to know where it started. It started here. And when
Mm,
he gets to be a teenager and you can't, he's unruly and all that, that rebellion isn't what we think of it as. It's what you left out, what you didn't let this child find for itself.
mm,
Now, the other day I had a line at the, pharmacy, and there's a kid there. She's in front of her older woman, looks like her grandmother. She's rocking. She looked up at me. I looked at her. She looked up at me. I said, "What's new?" And she started talking about the little periodic table and the salt sweet thing at business. She just started telling me what she had learned that was new. She just started talking. And the grandma said, what? She looked down, what is that? And I told her. And I said, that was our conversation. Complete. Her new thing. She shared it. I said to grandmother, I said, I'm glad you let that happen. I said, because that she's happy. That was a wonderful thing that she learned something new and she shared it like that. And you let it happen. You didn't panic. Oh, O'Hare Airport. I don't know where it's going. Bad day. Everybody's, O'Hare can get messy.
mm-hmm.
When that happens to me, I just chill out. I just say, if I got to be here for 2 days, I'm here for 2 days. That's it. So I'm standing in line to get something to drink, and I get this thing hit my hand. I look down, and here's this blonde-haired, blue-eyed little kid hitting me on the hand. I looked down and said, "Yeah, can I help you?" She goes, "You're black," she says in her playground voice. Huh? And she, of course, now the line is you can feel the right in the line. And I looked at her and I said, "Are you sure about that?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know anything about the scientific method?" She goes, "No." I said, "Well, that's the way you figure out if what you think is really true. You want to try it? You want to try and have a game a little bit for a minute?" "Sure." I said, "Hold on a minute." So it just happened to be the napkin holder, white napkins, right?
Uh-huh.
Napkin holder's black. So I go over and get the napkin holder off the counter, bring it back. I put it up next to my hand and I look at it. I said, "Well, what do you think?" Looks at that. I said, "Which one of those two things is black?" He looked at the thing, looked at that one. I said, "Oh, what happened to me?" Well, I know. How about chocolate brown? That's that I can go with that.
It's so
Hold on.
good.
I said, "Don't run away. Hold on." Took the canister back, brought a napkin back. I said, "Now it's your turn. What color are you?" "Well, okay, we go. The napkin. Put your hand out. The napkin out. She goes, uh-oh. Now what color are you? Which one's white? That, what are you? Took her a while. She says, how about a little bit pink? Yeah, that'll work too, you know. In the meantime, you know, we're holding up a line, right? And I said to her, I said, you have to be here with somebody. Who are you connected with? I have to
Uh-huh.
find your parent or something. And there
Uh-huh.
was a woman sitting across with a infant.
Yep.
And I said, that you? Yep. I said, well, come on, let's go. So I go and I thank the woman for letting us have our little moment too. And, you know, and she says, well, I've been stranded in O'Hare for a day and a half.
Oh, geez.
She said, and I wouldn't care who she talked to or what she talked to them about. She has been getting on my last nerve. Thank you for taking her off my hands. Yeah,
Boy,
there it is.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I know you can. That's why I told you the story.
That's funny. Just don't start any race wars. Go play.
I can't start a race war because there isn't anything but one race. And I make sure, now in the Western world that I frequent, you get a lot of weird stuff. And
Yeah.
people who have not, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't have a clue.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing because we're in the same country. We speak the same language. Not, they don't do anything harmful to me. They don't, I go anywhere and I've been around, stay in their homes, do all kinds of things. They don't understand anything about living in this country. Not for themselves. I've got a friend who is rabid about the border. He is a wonderful person. I looked at her one day. I said, what immigrant spectrum are you on?
Hmm.
What? I said, what immigrant spectrum are you on? She didn't know what I meant. I said, you are an immigrant. Where did you get your visa to be here?
Hmm.
Did you get it from Black Hawk, Black Elk? Did you get it from the Iroquois? Did
Hmm.
you get it from, I named all these other tribes, you know, bordering, did who, I said, I certainly know that Quetzalcoatl didn't give you one because he wasn't here. So who was in the Southwest that gave the Frenchman all this land? French land he's never seen, and he sold it to somebody. Can you imagine if I walked up here and took your little beholdings and sold them to a Frenchman? So the Frenchman sold all this land to the guy they call Jefferson.
Mm.
How did that happen? How did the Frenchman claim this land? Don't you find these humorous? Don't you see the humor in it? It doesn't seem a bit absurd that you're talking to me about an arbitrary line that you claim belongs to you. And I know damn well you've never seen that part of this.
I think your audio is starting to go out.
Is
Maybe.
it?
Oh, that's better. Something weird
Oh,
happened.
yeah. So I mean, these are just funny. You know, they're just things that are part of, and that's why when I talk about the horses, I want to know how deep can you go in your humanity.
Mm.
See, that's what I get from the horses. They inform my humanity because they don't talk. And that thing, we're talking, this field thing, being able to get to that. And I'm not very good at it. I'm not like you, probably, and a lot of other people, because there's a barrier, just the barrier being human in this culture presents certain things. Now, I see people like Nashuk who are amazing. But when he starts talking, and for him to start talking about James Baldwin, people don't get it. He'll start quoting, you know, Zora Neale Hurston in the midst of helping somebody with their horse. And he's right on. It's just you know what I mean? he hits it. And I don't like, I wish I could do that and stay honest, stay within where it is that I feel the most comfort and still relate to another human being in all honesty, even though we may differ in how we see things. We got a connection with this horse. And if we stay with this thing that does not talk to either one of us, and we find that quiet spot in that horse, that we get there together, we can both change for the better.
That's really, really something.
Yeah. Well, that's what Brent does.
It really is what he does. I have been in awe of him for a long time, but one of the things that inspires me about him the most is how some of the people that I come in thinking are, I wouldn't say that they're bad, but they're just, it's like, to me like they don't get it. And he connects with them and the horse at the same time, and he gives both of them. And that's just what you're talking about, is you're all connected through the horse, and he stays with it and he gets the person what they need. And I watch this person over time grow into something better because of that. You know,
Oh,
somebody that
absolutely.
somebody
Yeah.
that I might have doubted, he never falters on them, you know?
The one thing that he knows, and it's something that you probably, what I've tried to do also, is to remember when I didn't know.
Yeah.
If I
Yep.
can just stay at that spot, that person's at the spot of not knowing. If I can come back here and we both now are at the not knowing, you see, and
Mhm.
we can build from that. But we're going this way. We're not going. Uh. Uh. That's what more teaching is.
Mhm.
It jerks and spurts. But if you get with this like this, and we go like that, that's different.
Love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is a bad time to cut it off, but it's also a perfect time to cut it off because it just couldn't get better than that. I've got to get ready for bed pretty soon, but you probably have to get ready for bed too.
Yeah, I got to plug into my damn machine. It's all
I,
right. I'm good.
I've enjoyed this so much. I can't tell you how much.
Well, I feel honored that you would have me, do this. It, what I hope, if it's of any benefit to you, I hope there's some way you can make use of whatever it is I have to say to make your life work.
Well, it's about getting the experience and the knowledge and the feeling that you have out there for other people to benefit as well as me. You know, I want to, this needs to be shared. That's how I feel. So,
Well, one day you should figure out a storytelling thing and charge money. I'm serious. I do that. I do storytelling. I'm happy to do that. If you figured out a way that you could earn some money, I'll fly in and I can fly back home.
that would be super fun. We should figure that out because that actually would be really fun.
Yeah.
Let's do
Well,
that.
thank you. Thank you much.
Thank you so much. And tell Nina thank you for setting this up, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay.
All right, Charles, I'll be in touch. We'll do this again.
Bye bye.
Bye.